Oh, good morning, committee. Good to see you this morning. Sun's shining. Might get rain, but maybe.
It actually snowed about 20 minutes ago.
So, we have, some horticulture people with us, this morning. And, have, Andrea with us on, Zoom. And morning, Andrea. And,
Hello.
So, did you want to talk a little bit about how things are going in the world of horticulture and if we have a few questions we may ask and go from there.
Well, I guess I can just say that this is our very busiest, crazy time of year. The heat is always a difficult thing to deal with, especially because it's been so dry. So nurseries are very busy digging all the plant material. There's a critical time period that you can get nursery stock out of the ground if you're digging trees or shrubs. And the most important thing is for them to stay irrigated. So it's when we get the 80-degree weather and things just start budding out, it's really critical, but we're all used to it. It's just like farming. You never know what's happening day to day. And it looks like a good season, and there's tractor trailer loads of stuff coming in from the rest of the country, and we should be growing more here. So that's what I can tell you about what's happening. And everybody's busy and expecting that their yards are going to get cleaned up and be first on the list for landscapers. And not everybody can be first, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Last week, Wednesday, we took a little tour. What was the name of the greenhouse?
Kate Farm.
Kate Farms up in,
Yep.
East Montpelier. Their greenhouses in operation. It was really quite interesting. And
Good. Yeah, they've been a long time operation.
yeah, he's really well set up. I don't know if you've ever visited there, but he's got this little trolley car and track set up from one greenhouse to another where he would load the plants in a crate.
Trolley, yeah.
A little trolley car and rolls them around to the next greenhouse, and
Oh, yeah.
it's really a pretty neat operation.
Yeah. We'd love to give you a tour of the nursery and greenhouses in Chittenden County. So if you ever want to come over here, there's quite a few, nurseries that you can visit in an afternoon.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And good morning, Andrea. It's great to see you. When we looked at the House bill that came over, 472, one of the things we noticed was that, if I'm reading this correctly, there's already been an existing nursery license and also a distributing license. But the House had included one for what they call install, which I took to mean landscaping. And this would be a new license, which means a new registration fee. And I just wanted to kind of get a feeling for how some of the, and for lack of a better term, I'll call them landscapers because I don't know all the distinctions of it. How people felt about that. Is it needed, or is it more of us kind of reaching into people's pockets, so to speak?
Well, I would say I've been in this business. First, let me say that install is the word that's used, but I like to think that we're planting. We are working with living plants and we're planting, but in the industry, and everybody is now referring to it as installing. But so be it. I feel like it would be very hard. How is the agency going to know? And how are we as landscapers to know that we're supposed to get this license? So it feels like the cost of whatever fees you're going to collect, it does, I'm not sure that it's overreach, but I think it's what purpose is it serving? Because I think it is important for nursery growers and dealers to be inspected, and that most nurseries very much appreciate the ability of the agency to come with qualified people to inspect their nursery and to be sure that there's no pests or pathogens coming into the state. But I think once it reaches the landscaper's hands, you know, it seems to me that that's the purview of the agency, is in understanding the distribution network of product that is being grown in the state and is coming into the state. But I'm not sure what function a license would, or a fee for landscapers would serve.
That's a fair answer, and I can't speak for the other body. I mean, they must have taken testimony that indicated there was a need for kind of a third license, if you will. So I don't know what the answer was, you know, how that became part of the bill. Yeah.
Well, I guess if I could ask a question is, would it be worthwhile for the VNLA to look at minutes or understand what testimony they got for why they needed a license, why they thought it was necessary? Or do you have that information?
Well, luckily we have our legislative counsel with us, Michael Grady. He probably would be able to comment on the policy decision that was made in terms of how that came about, but perhaps he'll have at least some more information for us.
So first, it's not a new license. It's the existing nursery license would be required for those landscapers who are in the business of installation of nursery stock.
Oh.
So,
well, I've been in it, if I can comment, as I never knew that I needed that license.
Well, you don't currently. What is being proposed is that you would be required to get that nursery license, because the nursery license, a large part of the need for that license is for the agency to be able to track where nursery stock is for the purpose of pest detection and pest survey. So if a landscaper who installs nursery stock as their business is either importing it from out of state or buying it in bulk and then warehousing it, and there's an infestation or pest outbreak, how does the agency know where to go for the purposes of pest eradication?
Well, I would say that if a person is importing it from out of state, then they are a nursery dealer. They're not a landscaper. It could be both.
It could be both.
Yes, but if you're strictly a landscaper who's not, who's only buying stuff from the commercial distributors here in the state.
So, right, but I was a longtime landscaper, and I know that our company would buy in bulk from in-state commercial in-state nurseries and then warehouse it for when it was, right conditions. And if there's an infestation, if there's a pest outbreak, how would the agency know to go to that landscape business for the purpose of inspection and or eradication?
So
because they were importing whatever. Yeah. I mean, I think we're all in favor of keeping control of pathogens and pests. But I would hope that you'll figure out how we're supposed to know that. as business owners.
Did they talk about that? How are they gonna find these people?
I don't remember, I wasn't there for all the testimony from the agency, but typically the agency does education and outreach through existing businesses and through their newsletters and similar media.
Right.
Steph
Well,
is,
I would say that, members of the VNLA are in, usually are in communication with staff from the agency. But I would say the majority of landscapers who are, a lot of people in the maintenance business who do install a few plants here and there, or maybe large ones, are not members of the VNLA. So there's a lot of small business, a lot of people who do it part-time. And I would hope that the agency would recognize the importance of treating everybody fairly. So if only those members who know about it are responsible and get the license. I don't think the fee is unreasonable, but I'm not sure that the fees that you're going to collect from the minority of businesses that will comply justifies the expense of doing it. But that's administratively something for the agency and for you to think about. So that, I just feel like it will be a very difficult license or fee to get the message across and collect.
The way the bill's set up, it has been, I believe, is small producers that sell less than $1,000 would be exempt.
Yeah.
So the little backyard guys that dabble in it, I guess they wouldn't, under $1,000, they wouldn't be required to pay the fees. But Stephanie, do you have something you wanted to add on in regards to keeping track?
Yeah, so I completely agree that the $1,000 limit, Stephanie Smith with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, the $1,000 limit would exempt those producers or installers of material that are under that threshold. And then likewise, we do communicate through the VNLA newsletter. We wrote an article for the spring of last year in 2022, which reminded folks to get their dealer and grower licenses. So we currently do that outreach as a pro forma activity that the agency engages in. We can also use Tide Review and other ways of communicating. And we would also hope, to some extent, we would have totally agreed we should be equitable and apply it equally to all individuals engaged in or businesses engaged in installing plant material. So completely agree, and yeah, we would work on that.
So did you get your question answered, Brian?
I guess so. I'm still grappling with how many businesses there are that don't grow or distribute, but plant. And to me, that's in other words, if they're already a nursery, they already have a certificate, they already have connection with the agency, and everything seems to be working pretty well. Same with the distribution part of it. But I just wonder how many people are in that middle piece and how big they might be. I mean, if it's a guy in a truck or two guys in a pickup truck and they're just, for a while driving around planting things, are they gonna be affected by this? First of all, how many of them are there? I don't know if there's any way to know that.
Stephanie?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Because you got a $60 fee for a nursery.
Right.
And a $30 fee for a nursery dealer.
Yeah.
Like Cape Farms, are they a nursery dealer? Because they sell plants. would they be a dealer or are they a nurse?
Stephanie Smith with the agency, I believe they're growers. They're nursery growers. They're registered with the agency as a grower.
Okay, so so the grower and a nursery dealer. I wonder if we need another word in there.
I don't know. It may not rise to a level of concern for others, but it just, when I looked at it and I saw the word install, I thought, well, they're not growing them, they're not distributing them. So we're bringing more people into this world, I guess.
Yeah.
Stephanie, yes, again, Stephanie with the agency. I wanted to say that there are at least 3 other sections within this chapter of 206 in Title 6, and the word installation and or install is used within that chapter. And so the agency's perspective is, with respect to the housekeeping of this, is to clarify, because it's used elsewhere, that the intention was to include these businesses that are doing this for commercial gain.
Irene, you had.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Those of us who have businesses, small businesses, have to register them with the Secretary of State if we want to have a trade name registered. Well, I guess that's really out of style now, but those businesses that exist somewhere in the state's databases, plural, whether it's the tax database, Secretary of State's database, and you register what business you are in. Like I was running a newspaper, so I had communications of a certain type. I would think these landscapers have to register under a certain type of business that they're in. So one would think that in this day and age, you could search on that field or related fields and find these businesses and contact them. The other thing is, I know a friend who's a master gardener who's installing millions of plants in a summer, but she wouldn't consider herself, I don't think, part of this statute, nor would she be reading the statute as, entertainment, or even as a business-related occupation. I mean, she's so busy for 6 months in the summer, planting everything she can find for her clients. And I don't know how those folks fit into this, but I would just raise that as a question. There are lots of installers who I don't think would perhaps be informed. Maybe they're more informed than I think, but I just wonder how they plug into this as well. Thanks.
So, do you have anything to add to that?
So the agency, as a regular business, would always, has the first thing we do is we educate. So we try to reach out, we try to get lists, we try to communicate, and if we don't capture every nursery grower in the state, so we work constantly to educate and bring people into the fold. And the goal of this is to ensure and safeguard the environment, the consumer, and the plant industry as a whole, and knowing where these activities are taking place and understanding that. So that's the ultimate goal of this. And again, we have a progressive approach. We would never assign a fine, or not, that's probably not true, I can't say never. But again, the goal is education before we begin any kind of penalty or enforcement action, ensure that people understand that this is changing, this might be new to you. I mean, in any instance, nursery businesses change all the time, and we take the approach of education first.
Did you sit through any of that testimony, Michael?
I was not there for the witnesses, but the committee did have a lot of discussion of this section and how to clarify. They were concerned about, your neighbor's kid, you hire them to put in your flowers or plant some trees. And so they added that phrase that you have to be in the business of, so you have to be actively marketing. And then you have, as Stephanie referenced before, the $1,000 limit. But there was a lot of discussion. There was similar discussion to what you are having now, but I was not there for the witnesses.
And how much work would a person have to do to get to the $1,000? I know at home when my wife goes and gets all the, she buys the flowers and then, but she'll get $300 in the plants and so I don't know, if that number should be higher or is, yeah, any feeling on that? I mean,
The agency's goal is to safeguard the plant industry, the consumer, and others, and the environment. And so raising that figure will exempt a greater group of people that would prevent reaching that goal. So that's a concern for the agency.
so, but where she buys those plants, they wouldn't be exempt because they sell to a lot of people. So, but if she bought them from a neighbor, it wasn't really, but yeah, you either gotta be in that or not in it, I would think, in that business of growing. You gotta have a hoop house and get them started early and. But Andrea, you're all set with, you don't think the fees are bad and nobody would object to the fees that are in the bill?
No, I don't think people would object. I think the biggest concern for those of us who are growing and trying to be responsible is the ability to track all the material that's coming into the big box stores and hardware stores that are coming in by tractor trailer loads now with, the ability for the agency to inspect that material. And that's where the majority of the material is. So I would hope that the effort on this, doing this is to be sure that there is enough inspection going on at those large distribution places where annuals, perennials, trees and shrubs are coming in right now. And there's, I think, not staff at the times of year when you need it to be looking at that. So I don't think anybody's going to object to the fee. I think, $1,000 is like two medium-sized trees planted. It's not, it will be difficult to, I think, get the word out and to collect those fees. But for those of us who have been doing it and are members of VNLE, read Ag Review, we'll pay that. I would hope that, I don't think that those fees will cover the ability to do inspection at the level that's actually needed. So, and I also would comment that it would be really good to reduce the amount of time that it takes the agency to inform a nursery that they need to quarantine or stop sale on stock, because that should happen really fast. And in the proposed or the existing legislation, it's up to 7 days that they have. And I think from the grower's perspective, they'd like to know a lot sooner than that, like 2 days with a written notification to stop order or quarantine products. So.
Okay, so I'll let Stephanie answer that one, but I also have one additional question. So if Uncle Bob and me go to a store and buy nursery stock and then go around the neighborhood and plant it, what fee am I paying? Am I paying $60 or $30? And is the threshold, if you make more than $1,000 in labor, then you pay the 60? Or is it, I'm trying to figure that one out too. How would we determine what fee a sole landscaper is gonna have to pay in this arena?
I think $30 is the fee, if you're paying a fee. If you sell, it's the nursery stock, the $1,000 exemption applies to
Okay.
the nursery stock being sold.
Yeah.
And for folks that are installing or have heard the business of installing plants, the $30 fee is what applies. The $60 fee does not apply.
Okay. And to Andrea's point that the time might be
Time.
compressed, I
Um,
realize that means more work for the agency.
With respect to issuing a stop sale?
Yeah.
It's up to 7 days, but the goal actually of the language from the agency's perspective is to allow for the agency to immediately do something and follow up in writing within 7 days. So it's for us to be more able to react to a situation. So that's the goal of the language.
So like so to react is if somebody went to the nursery or went to big box store to get their plants and they thought they were diseased, they call the agency. It gives them a little lead time to get the inspector there and to do the inspection and say yes or no to whether or not it should be closed down because of the spread.
Because, yes, yeah. So as soon as we hear something and it rises to be, I mean, there are risks associated with various different kinds of pests. We assess the risk. We go do an inspection and then we pull it aside. So an example of something that's actually not related to an insect pest, but to a tree that's on the noxious weed list. We observe it in an inspection. We would pull that aside immediately and indicate that that cannot be sold in the state of Vermont because it is on our noxious weed quarantine list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may put you on the spot, what is your ability to inspect big box stores and supermarkets and people who are selling plants by the?
The agency goes out and does inspections. I was just looking for a report from 2022. We have an inspection report to be able to give you numbers, but I didn't find it
That's okay.
big enough.
All right, no problem. We can-
But we do, we go out. We have 3 regular staff people as well as myself. When I'm available, we go out and do inspections. We do inspections together. We do inspections independently. We travel the entire state and we try to do an inspection at least in every county. So, but I can get those numbers to you. Yep.
Andrea, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I think just the notification, the written notification is, as soon as possible is great. And then also being sure that the ability to lift the quarantine is quick communication. I mean, it's a short time period that nurseries and greenhouses have to sell their product. And so the ability to lift the quarantine in a timely manner is important. And just timely communication, because it's a very time sensitive business.
Yeah. So you have 3 inspectors plus yourself, so that's pretty good, isn't it?
We added an additional inspector in 2022. So
You added,
there was a shift in folks. So we were able to add an additional inspector in 2022. So we have 3 now. And then we employ, based on federal dollars that we get, we employ a summer seasonal person that also assists.
so you have extra in the summer.
4 in a quarter, maybe 8.
So,
Guess I'm all set.
you're good to go.
I don't know what this does for the language here, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I guess we'll leave it be. We seem to have found the sweet spot, I guess.
But it sounds like a nursery dealer is like a nursery house, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
We went to Kate's, that's a nursery.
He grows and sells.
And if the nursery owns or controls the nursery of the Caitlin, because he's got that 2 or 3 acre patch down. See, if they grow a half acre or more, then they pay the $60. And the green health space is 25,000 square feet or more. So he would fall into that area because of there's 5 or 6 greenhouses here. So they would be up in this, but then the next smaller ones down below would pay only $30. So that's pretty clear. And the $1,000, if you're under that backyard, you grow or something, you're out anyways. And did you have anything else to add, Michael?
Not to this discussion. There are a couple of technical changes as I referenced yesterday, some just minor typos. That's the house.
So is there any, Andrea, did you have anything else? No?
No, thank you for being able to offer our opinion.
So I guess we're all set then on the fees and that part of it. Michael, you wanted to run through some technical.
Sure. They are all in the B section.
Section B.
No, the.
Apiary. Thank you.
So the first is in, it's on the website. But the first is in section 7. In the first sentence. Yeah, it says the secretary or his or her or. So there's 2 ors and 1 needs to be struck. Let's see changes in section 8, 66, 3025 again in the first sentence. You have to strike one of those ors. And then in section 13 of needs to be inserted before the secretary's inspector. So those are the technical changes.
What was the last one?
So it's in section 13.
Page 14.
And it's in section 3031. We say 3031. It's in that first sentence again. Currently, it says the secretary or secretary's inspector. It needs to say the secretary or the secretary's inspector. That's it.
Harold just tells me.
Yeah.
So we got those changes. Those are done though, right? Those updates,
What do you mean?
the ones you just explained.
No, that you would have to vote on those as your committee's recommendation to change the 472.
So is that it for tech stuff?
Those are the only technical changes.
Almost amen, because these are simple.
Second.
Yeah, been moved and seconded that we make the technical correction changes to the bill. Is there any further discussion? If not, we can go to the roll.
Can I just ask a procedural question? Do we need to take an actual vote on that? Or can we add it to the bill when we vote on the bill? If you know what I'm saying. Do there need to be two separate votes?
Well, usually you vote the clean copy and then you vote it out and take it right up.
Well, you are recommending that the bill that you received from the House be amended with these three changes. I'm not sure what two votes you're talking of. You want to vote on the amendment and then you want to vote on the bill. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure that we need to have both votes. I think if we, however, did we change it in any other way?
No.
Okay, then we need to do it with this.
Yeah, we'll do amend it, and then we'll move the bill as amended.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm all set.
Go for it.
So I don't want to record this.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you record this and
And then
then
we'll do another vote to vote the bill as
Oh,
amended.
so I'm voting that it's changes which is on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, so this is the vote on the amendments.
Yeah.
Senator Campion. Senator Almore.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
yes.
Senator Renner, yes. Senator Stark.
Yes.
That's the, and then it's passed 4-0.
I'll move the bill as amended.
Sorry.
Do we want to get Campion in here or no? So his
You can
thoughts.
hold the vote open for him.
Yeah, we'll hold that open for his vote. When he gets here. Did you move?
Yeah, I move the bill as amended.
We'll vote and we'll just hold it. If he wants to vote yes, well,
You did already.
I did second.
You did second that, okay, great. Okay, so once again, Campion Collmore.
Yes.
Westman,
Yes.
Renner, yes. Stark.
yes.
And are you gonna do the?
Yeah, I'll do
report?
this one, sure.
All right, I'll have the section by section chief on the end.
Is it likely you'll have to go to
It'll-
finance because of the extra fee?
Well, the fee was in the underlying
Yeah,
bill. to
it's
begin
in
with,
the underlying.
Right.
So it was going to finance
Either
anyway.
way. Okay.
So what am I bringing upstairs? Just
So
this sheet?
Senator Collmore has to bring that up. to
Yeah,
the
he'll have
Senate Secretary.
And I'll get you the original.
Yeah.
from it.
Oh, that's right.
So, so we got that one. The 205 bill, your bill's down in finance.
It will be assigned to,
I think it's gonna go to appropriations, not
it will
finance.
be assigned today. Right.
Maybe the secretary sent it to finance first, but I'm not sure. The grant program, they usually go to approps, not finance. And there's a specific appropriation in it as well.
That's right.
In,
350.
yeah, I'll go.
Well, go to approps.
So they'll be next week and I'll be next week.
The, then, did we have you working on some language for, the, cannabis?
Yes, yes. You asked me yesterday during the discussion of 270.
Should have a copy.
You asked, or the question arose whether or not the cultivator of cannabis should also receive right to farm nuisance protection. And you asked me to communicate with the board, Cannabis Control Board, or whether or not they thought that was a good idea or not. So I emailed Bryn when I perchance saw her in the hallways, and she said they were fine with that, it kind of makes sense, because if you're already making the policy decisions that municipalities shouldn't be able to regulate it away because of nuisance. You should probably also provide that nuisance protection if a private individual is going to bring a nuisance claim. But remember, and you should all recall that under the right to farm, Vermont's right to farm, it doesn't eliminate that person's ability, the next door neighbor, to bring the nuisance claim. They just have to overcome that rebuttable presumption. And so they have to show all the criteria that they're complying with the RAPs, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're not taking away a person's right. You're just saying that for the purposes of cultivation of cannabis, it's going to be treated as any other agricultural activity or as an agricultural. So that's what the language on page 3 does of H270. It adds a 5th category of benefit that cultivators outdoors would receive. And so they would be entitled to the rebuttable presumption that cultivation does not constitute a nuisance under 12 VSA Chapter 195, which is the right to farm. In the same manner as agricultural activities are entitled to the rebuttable presumption under 12 VSA 5753, which is the specific section, statutory section that grants the rebuttable presumption. So the language follows the model that was used last year for providing the exemption for farming from Act 250, providing the exemption from municipal bylaws. So it is what I think you asked for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Michael, in essence, we've added a 5th exemption, if you will, or at least a protection for the folks.
So I see a lot of what farmers receive as a regulatory benefit because they're farming and they're complying with the RAPs or et cetera. You give them the benefit of not having to do certain things or not being regulated in a certain way. So here you're saying outdoor cultivation of cannabis receives 5 of the regulatory benefits that farming would receive. There was a concern that was raised by the executive director of the board this morning, Britton Hare. They were concerned that granting the Act 250 exemption for cultivation would somehow lead to some wily developer starting a cannabis grow and then building residential commercial development on the tract. That's not how Act 250 works, right? Act 250 applies to development. And what you are saying here is that cannabis cultivation is to be treated as the same way as farming is under Act 250. And farming is not development. But if you were going to have that cannabis cultivation and then you built your houses, well, that's development. And that meets the Act 250, where you don't just because one exemption might apply to one activity on a 10-acre parcel doesn't mean that that entire parcel is exempt into the future ad infinitum. It's what you are doing on the property is what triggers Act 250 jurisdiction.
Well, that makes sense. If you've got that plot of land and you go and start building buildings, that is, but you're just planting product.
Just, if you had a cannabis grow on a 10-acre parcel and you are also enrolled in use value and you started building on that, you would trigger Act 250, you would trigger municipal regulation, you get kicked out of use value.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, that's just how the law works.
Yeah, I mean, you would today.
Right. Right.
If you were growing corn.
And you started doing that, you would, because Housing is not a farm structure, so it wouldn't qualify for the municipal exemption. It would be development, so.
Just so I'm clear, so the permit level she brought up that had indoor growing and outdoor growing. As long as it's outdoor growing, we're not doing it.
Right.
But if they built a building to grow indoors and on the side of that, they put a greenhouse. So they have some indoor and outdoor. That's in a different category than just the growing outside.
That is correct.
I agree.
So not being the expert on Act 250, is what you just said about Bryn's question and your clarification indicative of the fact that there could be a sixth benefit or no?
Here she is.
I think,
We're not mentioning Act 250 here.
no, you are.
Yeah,
mentioning
that's-
250.
Where is that?
That is on page 3, lines 5 through 7. We don't actually call it Act 250, we call it MGSA Chapter 151.
Yeah.
Act 250 is just its name.
Good, 2-1. Thank you. Got it.
Are you all set, Sandra? Brown?
Find it.
I found it, I just need to digest it now.
So while
Okay,
you're.
so that's what you're saying is,
Right.
that's the part.
So my question was, at one point, we talked about that there was still a possibility, although slight, that, and I can't remember the term, other involved land was also possibly going to be able to trigger a 250.
So when I talked to the executive director of the Natural Resources Board, which regulates Act 250, he said that cultivation of cannabis could trigger Act 250 in multiple ways. First, because it's not farming, it's not exempt from development. So it is commercial, and therefore if it triggers the 10 acre for its entire operation, not just the parcel that is part of the parcel that's being cultivated, it could trigger Act 250. Maybe that's not likely, but maybe it could happen. Then there's the involved land discussion. When you are doing any Act 250 development, they look to see how much of the land is devoted to the commercial development to see if you're triggering the 10 acre threshold. And so that is another way that a cannabis cultivation, say you're on a farm, large farm, but you're using only a small part of that for cannabis cultivation, but you are getting your compost from across the way of the farm, or you are using the equipment for cultivation that's housed in the barn that's over on that side of the farm. They're going to look and see what's involved in that. And so that could trigger Act 250. And in addition, there's the permanent amendment provision that says if you're going to go through a permanent amendment, certain farming uses are exempt. Cannabis cultivation isn't farming, so it could be brought in through the permanent amendment process as well. So there is possibility that cannabis cultivation, even at its limited size, under even the largest tier, could, or even the smallest tier, could trigger Act 250. So if you don't want cannabis cultivation, outdoor cultivation, to have to be subject to Act 250, you want it to be treated in the same way that farming is for the purposes of development under Act 250. And that's what this language does.
That's what I wanted.
I think my major concern is that I don't want some big multi-state or operator coming in and trying to get their nose under the tent of 250 and then be able to build a big indoor grow or mixed grow. But our little guys that are growing this Well, I think we heard the other day, if you did the small farm thing, you could do 650 plants, and if you spread them out enough, you could cover, I guess, a couple of 3 acres. But in the grand scheme of things, if you've got a 50 or 100 acre farm, even a small farm, it's not using up too much, and it's making, I should think it would be better for the plant. It would be better for the soil. It would be better for everything if it was spread out. The plants are spread out a little bit more than keeping them too tight.
Didn't John Rogers say something exactly similar to that, or very similar to that?
Yeah, the plants grow better, and you can get through there and cultivate, and, and you aren't getting all the nutrients that the plant needs from a little plot of soil. You're spreading that out, so it's better for so Bren, are you folks, the board's all set with these changes, so that if some other committee hauled you in?
Yes, I think that the board's testimony remains the same, that the exemption from the municipal jurisdiction is important to us to ensure equity across the state, since we do know that there are municipalities that are regulating
Yes.
in a way that will have the effect of pushing out cultivators. But I think that our testimony remains that we are not, because we're not the experts on Act 250, we cannot testify that removing Act 250 jurisdiction over every plot of outdoor cultivation will not have an impact. So, yeah,
If they do go over, they will, Act 250 will be had jurisdiction. If they go over their size here, or start building buildings.
If they start doing activities outside the scope of cannabis cultivation, they could trigger.
So, and I mean, people rat on 250 all the time. And I mean, I went through it in 30 days from the day I started. It was done and over, and I had my permit. I mean, if you get your stuff lined up and together, it goes good.
I would just note that I think these protections, these regulatory benefits are kind of a cascading, are necessary because of cascading effect.
Yeah,
Because if you say the municipality is not going to be able to regulate the operation and the cultivation away, well, then private property owners would have the ability to go to Act 250 and use the remedies under Act 250 to try to regulate the cultivation away. And even if you then exempted Act 250, then the private property owner would have the ability to go to right to farm nuisance to try to get a court order to say that they have to stop, like they got the court order at Airy Point for that activity. You say, so there is that, you're trying to support this cultivation and provide a protection that farming has without giving it every single regulatory benefit that farming has. I think you're doing that with the caveat that a person can still bring a nuisance claim. They just now need to meet the heightened standard of get a rebut the presumption under the right to farm.
Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard you ask a question about the big guys getting in under this. Can Michael speak to that as to how this protects us against the big growers coming in and just
I think I would,
Is there any protection in here against that?
I think that question is for the board in red, because I think from my knowledge of the tiered system, that's what provides that protection.
Okay.
Yeah, so. Yes, Jeffrey?
Good morning, committee. For the record, Jeffrey Pizzatello, Executive Director, co-founder of Vermont Growers Association. Thanks for having this conversation once again. These are very important issues for the current industry. Licensees are grappling with these matters, so I appreciate you guys seeking to alleviate some of these regulatory concerns that adult use licensees are currently experiencing. I want to speak to a moment to the concerns around large businesses coming in. I think those are valid concerns, and I would like to highlight that the agency has done an outstanding job in arriving at production tiers for these licensees, for these cultivators, that would in effect prevent any sort of large outsized investment. What do I mean by that? If you look at some of the allowances for other states, their canopies are very large. They are exponentially larger than ours. And that is more desirable for these sort of large out-of-state companies to come in and cultivate. Here in Vermont, our largest outdoor tier is 20,000 square feet. That's 2,500 plants. That is very reasonable. That is moderate on the national scale. In fact, that is small. We would consider that craft production. So I want to impart on this committee that through the market structure and the current tier structure of our cultivators, our cultivation licensees, we do a pretty good job of preventing that sort of investment in our state. And in fact, if you recall, the board is actually, we believe, thinking about even sunsetting indoor tier 4 and 5, which speaks to really what we're seeking in terms of a market structure here. So we feel comfortable currently with those tiers that we have and preventing that sort of investment. So I just want to share that with everybody.
So your members are pretty happy with the updates and that the board and our committee is proposing, I take it?
Yes, absolutely. We have several outdoor tier 3 for members of ours. These would be material to their everyday lives. What we're hearing from Ledge Council and this committee discussing today with regards to Act 250, that would be a significant improvement. So we are pleased where this conversation is going. And I would just like to add, we, Graham, and our coalition are seeking some housekeeping changes to the propagation license, which is also in this same bill. If you guys are, willing to turn to that at some point, we would be happy to share some of our housekeeping changes to that idea as well. But getting back to ag, this is a great conversation, so thank you.
And see what the way this process is unfolding. Economic development, the committee next door, they have jurisdiction of this bill. And what we'll do is present these changes to them to add to the overall bill of H-270. So we're just a small part of a bigger package. And do you know, how are they doing in there on H-270?
They're waiting for your committee to do its review and Senate Health and Welfare to do its review, and then I think they're taking it up again on Friday.
So once we get this presented to them, then they still got to get health and welfare.
Health and Welfare is looking at the medical program portions of the bill. And then they will take your recommendations and their recommendations and take it up again this week.
So, how's the committee feel about where?
Well, it sounds like the growers are okay with it, so.
Does this put us down into, does this make this bill go to judiciary? Because was in economic development, talking about their workforce bill. So I wasn't here for part of this, but now that we're getting into the nuisance area, does that,
It's not gonna by rule be sent there, but
but neither would the other bill, right? Yeah,
you know the chair.
Yeah.
Sherry.
so they're gonna try to slightly strip that section.
Or, no,
Or
I think what basically what he will want to know is what it does. And so if you do a drive-by with him,
You think it'll be,
I think it'll be fine.
We're not
Doesn't change existing law.
Yeah, this is existing
Yeah,
law, we're not
There's
putting in
no-
our
what were you-
regulation like we'd like to.
well, we're not changing existing law, then what are we doing?
They're just saying that cannabis cultivation.
Attend meetings and then you. That would be my biggest. Yeah.
Cannabis cultivation receives the same rebuttable presumption that other agricultural activities receive under the right to farm,
As long as it's outdoors.
as long as it's outdoors.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why they have brought up.
a person can still bring a nuisance claim, but they have to meet the higher standard under the right to farm, not changing the standard.
Yeah.
Just saying that it will be treated the same as other agricultural activities that receive that.
25-year-old nuisance protection plans.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'd love to say about that. Do you need a motion to do that or what?
We
What's
bring
the
it
process?
down. We just did, I just did it in there with an ed bill. We just brought our recommendations down. They asked us a bunch of questions and then they either take them or,
Yeah, in,
I was down, yeah, in economic development.
we'll, yeah, we just got a vote that we're all set and then, we'll, give this to Allison and,
We'll probably have you go down.
yeah, and Autumn will go in too and,
Yeah.
run through it. And,
And the House Committee on Ag wants to look at the whole issue this afternoon as well.
so, yeah, we could just as well move. And if we're all set, I think the association board's happy with it, and the association's happy, and so. So somebody want to make a motion to recommend these
already
changes?
did.
I'll second.
Second. Rich, is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
And not, you want to call the roll?
Call the roll. Senator Campion,
Yes.
Senator Collins.
Yes.
Senator West. Yes. Senator Rodriguez, Senator Sharp.
Yes. And Brian, Irene's got the other.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And that was a miscellaneous ag. Senator Wisdom shared to me. I mean, yes, on it.
Okay, it's just that 3,000.
Yeah, he mentioned it.
So that's.
Yeah.
Here.
Thanks.
So I don't know if Allison, how they're gonna report this, but they may either want us to support them in some fashion on this section or not, I'll have to ask. But,
Yeah, maybe it's good question. Maybe it's a floor. I don't know.
no, they got the bill, they're
That's
gonna
right.
add it in there. You know, we still may, all offer assistance if they want it. But if they want to report their whole building. So be it. So. Anything else?
So you're gonna go to the committee.
I'm not sure how that works either. Does this go up to the Senate office or does it go?
No, I don't think you needed to take a formal vote on that. It was really more of a straw poll
Yeah.
recommendation.
But you keep
I'll
that.
keep this and you'll let us.
Yeah. Yes. So this copy that, the
Yeah.
419.
And I can email it to Senator Clarkson as well if you'd like.
Very good. Anything else from Michael?
Thank you. I'm always capable of this, but we don't know.
Yeah, just, Michael, we might need some language, for folks on, yeah, we've got, the fencing issue that we're gonna add to the budget.
Right,
Um,
that's just gonna be a pass-through grant through the agency. It's just gonna be however much dollars are appropriated to the agency of ag for the purpose of establishing a pilot program.
we were gonna run through farm viability.
Are you gonna run through farm viability? Okay. All right, so it's gonna be the VHCB for the purpose of the establishment of pilot program, or the invisible fencing of livestock.
That's all it is.
And I'll just say livestock shall be defined as
All
six PSA, whatever.
You want to send that to Stephanie?
Sure.
And then what about the organics? That's gonna be in here too. That will go to the agents.
So Gary, I haven't heard much on that since the House passed it.
We've got to get EB or Laura in here to get those final numbers. And then we're gonna need language, that will go to the agency.
I did give you language that was based on production from last calendar year, right?
Yeah, and I want to make sure that they have to be in production as of 2022.
And that,
You wrote that all up, I think, once.
yeah, I think I said that they had to be currently in production, not, and that they produced in 2022, but not that they were producing at the end of 2022, because there's some of the seasonal producers.
Yeah,
They
had to be still in production.
Still in production,
Number.
right,
And supposed to, there's one number that,
The appropriation piece,
yeah,
Salvation Farms,
Salvation Farms.
conservation districts.
well,
I think Salvation Farms is in the conservation districts.
That's not coming out of our money.
Well, it's hard to tell because they put the House put conservation districts in as one top for it. And, you know, quite frankly, what the House did is really put us in a really terrible spot because they put the conservation districts in as one-time money when they really need base. You know, they didn't put 6.9 for organic food at all. So it's no calculation for that. So we have to balance all of that up. I would, you know, so we put that 6.9 in, and our whole allotment for agriculture is in. Where does that put us in? You know, quite frankly, some of the things that the governor put in is meant to long-term help
Yeah,
the sustainability of all of agriculture moving ahead. And so I'm not sure what we want in here.
What was the total for Salvation Farms?
That was 500.
5,000.
500.
Yeah.
And conservation districts of millions, so there's
Yeah, but they
1.5.
are,
Yeah, but that's,
I'm just trying to figure
Salvation
out.
Farms clearly was one time. They want to build a facility, they do it, that's one time, and there are
And the
5.
organic was too.
Well, organic is, yes, but the organic, yes. So it's just, it's hard to figure out what we want.
Well, it's hard to figure out what we're gonna get.
Yeah, I know what we want.
Yeah.
I want the conservation districts to get the million, but I want it to be based.
Yeah, but,
Well,
I know.
the base
but
is,
but the question is on base for the conservation districts. They don't want one ton.
they'd rather have base.
So would we settle for a base number that's less for the conservation?
See, I'd settle for, even if we had to take, I'd rather have a 500,000 base
Me
than a million one ton.
Me too.
Right,
And so
that's exactly what I was.
All right, so you guys are gonna have to. dive over there.
oh yeah, it's more driving than,
What-
But won't the House accept the 6.9? I mean, they put it in the budget adjustment. You think they'd be keen on?
They didn't put it in at all.
They didn't put it
Yeah,
in at
But
all.
maybe they didn't want the embarrassment of putting it in again and having us reject it. I mean, I can't even understand why they.
This is not an issue of embarrassment.
I think it's,
Is it
they
oversight?
didn't, no, they didn't oversight and didn't realize that, you know, they thought because maybe it was in the budget adjustment, it would automatically carry forward, right?
In the,
That's what happens when you have a whole new. And then,
and then we had the working lands piece, where they were asking for 3 pieces within.
yeah, it's,
I don't know quite what, how we want to represent what this community wants.
well, on working lines, on which part?
Well,
We got the fence deal.
well, that,
I think
that on,
that's coming. okay.
well, that
That's
on
what
our list, on the list that's being reflected, you know, on the carrying document for appropriations, it says 350, which I think is more than we need.
Yeah, we used some of that. We only need like 150.
Did
So
you get
we
the
got,
grant? I thought you got the grant.
You did.
He got
Yeah, so we
grant,
don't need-
but he got like 50 something of grant. And I thought when we originally talked about it in here, it was more like 250, but he's got grants, so your 150 might give you.
so you do 150 on that and then take that other 200 and we use that to cover some of this other stuff.
But how do we, because if I look at the 10 million that the governor had,
Well, he's getting, the governor's gonna get screwed. I mean, there's no way you can get to 10,
but
you know, for him and
But the question is, in here, in that whole picture of the 17 between the organic and the 10 that was in the governor, what is, and that was broken up into pieces. What do we think in this committee are the most important pieces?
of their
Right.
3 things.
Of their 3 things
Right.
and the 17.
So you guess that.
10:45.
So if we do, in the dairy part, we do the 150, the big dairy, the convention. We do the 150 for the fencing.
Yeah,
Take that other 2, and I think that's gotta go to the DMC program. You get that back up to fully funded. So then that takes care of that. And we've got our other issues like the conservation district.
yeah.
That's 500. We shouldn't, I mean, we may have to
How many
settle for
districts
less.
this year?
14.
14.
Yeah, if you divide, like last year, we gave 250, well, you divide that by 14 and pocket change.
And go shop.
So we ought to fight like hell to try to get that to 500.
At least.
Yeah, Yeah, okay.
Salvation was 150?
I think we ought to push,
But that,
Push
hopefully we'll get
appropriations.
that separate under economic development or something.
right,
That's what I'm gonna argue on that. That's, I mean, she wants to build a warehouse to
Exactly,
wash
yeah.
and.
Yeah,
Do we
that's my
have-
marking.
do we have the,
That's what Salvation wants to do.
Yeah.
yeah, that's 500, but that's, I would argue, that's clearly one time. That's not like any of these others. They wanna buy something, it's done, we're there.
Well, that's one time, the
Fencing,
fencing one time.
How much is the fencing again?
150.
And-
Yes, out
No,
of
that's-
8 billion, we ought to
You
do.
have the small farmer one time as
Three
well.
fifty, that's
Right.
one
Oh,
time.
forgot about that.
Most of our stuff's one time.
Organic is.
The
Well,
DMC
Well,
is
the whole
already,
10 million, do we have the 10 million on one sheet? We just, well,
That's a good idea.
I got Stephanie's doing, putting that together.
if they could do that, because I think around this table, we have to look at it and say, what's our priorities in here?
It's too bad we don't have a whiteboard.
I've got a calculator.
Listen, you're lucky ever.
I know.
Irene will jot it down.
Yeah,
We've
She's an
got them all
Yeah.
listed.
you want to do an Excel spreadsheet, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we
Oh,
can start with the known issues, the
6.9,
6,
8, 9, what is it?
well,
Nine.
it's
Try to-
right on the appropriation sheets, it's 6.9.
those 6.9 there.
500.
Five, Salvation Farms, 500. That shouldn't be on. there.
Shouldn't be on there.
Should go on.
350 for the bill and reform,
The what?
the diversification.
Small farmers.
Small farm.
How much is that?
350.
And then we got,
1.2.
200,000 for DMC, the dairy margin
Yeah, I
protection,
already got that in with the fence.
and
And fencing is 150.
150 for
So
fence.
that's, yeah.
Seems like there's something.
We're giving money to the food bank or any of those other.
Food bank is not, it's ours.
Oh, it's not
And,
that.
and, we voted in appropriations to up the food bank to 3 million over the one that, was asked there.
Excellent.
There's a whole package of food stuff that we, are gonna, there's 1 million for, Meals on Wheels.
Excellent.
In the House proposal that came over. The problem really is, and we heard about it in here, is the reduction in 3 squares is $78 million. So how are we going to,
Conservation. Did you get conservation districts?
I know, how much is that?
500.
500?
the 3 pieces that were, when did they come in and do their presentation? So I can,
Conservation districts.
no, the administration, the secretary.
Well,
On what topic? On,
on the 3 projects,
Yes,
beef, dairy and maple.
oh geez, that was.
Yeah.
Forestry. Beef and,
Beef, maple, and goat.
yeah.
but I somewhat, it was the
See, I was
secretary.
thinking that if we had $1 million or 2 to give them, they could get started and then come back in on the budget adjustment. And say, well, we've got this lined up. The third option is we haven't gotten going yet. But we need X dollars to the next 6 months, to get really going.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that they might be okay with that, if it got them started.
Excuse me.
You think of any other things where we need any money that we've talked about?
I can't think of any right now.
What about last year's bill, compared to last year's budget? Other categories that,
You've got DMC, you've got small farmer, you've got organic. You've got conservation districts. Although I think JFO was talking to the agency about that yesterday. About the history of funding and what funding was available to the conservation districts through some of the grants.
Water quality.
Right.
Yeah, we got some of those numbers late yesterday afternoon.
Is the 10 million really firm?
10
million
I
really
think
firm?
we have to push a little on
Is
that,
it?
but we have to be
Yeah, no,
realistic.
That's the organic?
No, that's total.
That's what Jamie told me. You got a box with a 10 at the top, and you better fit everything in there. I said, well, it's a pretty damn small number for such a big box. I said, you know, ag is about 3 billion a year, and well, things aren't good when you add up the numbers. I mean, the requests that it's almost sinful.
do we give money to VHCV at all, or do they get money from somebody else?
Do we give them money?
Yeah,
Not from here.
okay, but they get from somewhere else.
Yeah, they do.
All these people are here pitching to us, so I didn't know if they wanted money.
But you are giving them the invisible fence project, because that's where farm liability is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a good, and because the alternative would work.
So the House put in the 10 million. The governor put in the 10 million for the economic development grant programs. And the House did 5. The Working Lands Enterprise, the governor put 3, they put 1. Those are all one-times. And then there's 1 million base allocation for working lands. This one, what's that?
Working Lands Enterprise.
Yeah, they need 1 base.
350 for the small farms.
Yep.
Diversification.
Right, and that's the difference between the governor and the House.
So they put, they've got 7.3 spent without the organic
Right,
and without the fencing.
right.
And,
Do they have DMC in there?
they don't have any of the stuff that we're proposing in, and they got 7.3. But that was given the governor on.
Right.
So they got 2.3 somewhere else, spent. So if we take, well, we might be able to get the governor up to two.
But it'll push the total probably closer to 11.
But I don't see where they should count that. Like that 10
Yeah.
beyond going.
It's half of that
Some
10,
of that was one time.
half of that 10 was for slaughterhouses, pretty close.
So we worked to ship that into them last year.
And then,
They haven't even been in to ask for more this year.
then they did, some for the fruit and vegetable. And then there's the meat.
Maple price up in mass. Nursery people are pretty happy with theirs.
What about the beef on dairy conversions? Is that covered by somebody else or are they already taking on that?
Well,
This is what we got on April 7th. I can print this out.
yeah, so they
If
had.
you go down through, they have the industry facts and the challenges. And then they,
Gabby Willis.
yes,
So they got just half it, but
Yep.
the government was 14 million and they got 7.3. Yeah, that.
is Abby the person to talk to at Ag? Okay.
About that, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like to have them comment on what they think is the aim. You know, if they had to lose someone that can, where do they see the most need in that?
did we have anything else?
No, I gotta jump upstairs.
So I think we'll,
But you've got people coming in.
They're the wineries, right?
Yeah, the one area, that'll be fine.
10:45, I think.
Bottom line now.